Morning, fellow zombies. Are we alive yet? Are we awake yet? Are we emotionally screwed up and sleep deprived? Because I sure as hell am. It's 7:26 in the morning, West Coast time for a Friday, April 25th, 2025. I missed a uh, sunrise this morning. Somehow the moon was supposed to have been getting two shapes of planetary formations that would have the moon look like it had eyesight, with just two dots, and then there was a smile of a crescent of the moon. I missed it this morning. Some of the artistics that they put out there for the memes looked a lot more human than just having two dots, regular shaped, and then you had a crescent of the moon. I was like, big whoop. If it doesn't happen again, it doesn't happen again. I got no problem with that one. No, what I got a problem with is a Trump that wants to spend billions, or actually millions, actually a billion, to celebrate his birthday coming up in June. He wants to celebrate his birthday in June with a big ticker tape parade of showing how much of a jackass he is. Oh, yeah. Right now we have a funeral procession happening in Italy, in the Vatican. Leaders around the world are still paying their tributes to the fallen papal. He had done work. He has done work in communities. He is being celebrated, and he's being honored because he was a simple man fighting for simple things. Drove a small car around instead of using a motorcade to get around areas. Being carried in a wooden box that was seen at eye level, or actually street level, when he was on viewing. Services and memorials usually leave me drained. But they are important for the world to pay its final attention to the people and to let them know that he was special. It's a long procession in the Vatican right now. It's been ongoing for a couple hours. Give the world its final look. And his body is going to be transported to his native Argentina for burial. That's a lot. That's a lot. A lot for me to take in anyway regarding a memorial. While that would be gathering and garnishing my attention on it, I was not raised Catholic. I was raised Methodist, but I still have to have respect for the people. No, now we've got another thing to address ourselves because we have a gas bag who still wants a thing on June 14th, his birthday, to be celebrated. I don't care how old the old part's going to be. He wants to throw the military out there and parade around and show that he's the greatest. He's always probably had a fascination of the militant leaders out there who show their hardware just to prove how great they are. And he wanted that. I think he's going to get it. There's going to be a lot of veterans, a lot of people who have lost jobs, millions of quote unquote dollars saved, and that money is being spent on him, on the active duty, showing hardware. Now, here's the thing here. You know what drives me crazy at this point? When they actually had a budget before the Pentagon, we actually had people employed a long time ago. We'd have air shows. We had military bases having air and sea craft and maybe land craft. When there was budget, when there was enough sufficient funds in the Pentagon budget. Yeah, I know. But they would do this. That would show to the public, to the populations, of how important the military was and is these days to our global defense. How many people have been employed by them? And this was cool back in those days. We'd see the aerial dogfights. We'd see the aerial spectaculars. On the sea, in Navy days, or Fleet Week, they would call it, when ships would go to different ports and show either their cruisers, aircraft carriers, whatever they're going to be showing, to different ports, telling people that, military's in town. They want to have a party, but they're coming on board as an invite. These would cost millions of dollars. These would, especially the air shows when they were around. Security, not to mention their fuel, pilots, technical stuff. Yeah, it costs millions of dollars just to run an air base for $1 billion. But it would be worthy enough for public affairs. Out here in Rosamond, California, we have Edwards Air Force Base next door. Once in a great while, they would have an air base, an air show. Problem is, it would be in their particular airspace that we'd fly around, and we'd barely see it. But we have our own little air shows happening every so often when they start buzz bombing people left and right with their testing for experimentation. We'd have a bit of an air show in Plant 42. If you guys hadn't been noticing, sometimes I hadn't referred you over to the Google Maps. So, okay, boys and girls, to the maps of the Google you go. Let us show you what we're dealing with. So it is here that I click on an icon on my screens, and I go to the maps of the Google. As soon as the damn thing works, I'll be fine. And it automatically puts me in where my home is at, right next to Edwards Air Force Base. And I can widen the shot, and I can see the arrowhead. And in that arrowhead, you have small and a couple of large communities, all in a desert region here. So if I widen this shot, I will see my arrowhead. I will see portions of dry desert. And in that area, you've got one air base in between two major communities. But the major one, the Edwards Air Force Base, is, that would be my coffee ready. Give me a second, guys. Must have coffee. Sorry about that. Tea calls. Coffee's getting too expensive, so I have to substitute my caffeine with tea. I've always liked tea. I've always been a tea drinker. When I'm not doing the coffee, I'm dealing with the tea. And me not going into a tirade about it. Let's continue on with things, shall we? Okay. So here we have on the Google Maps, Antelope Valley, California. Edwards Air Force Base is the major force to be dealt with in this place. Back in the 90s, they were having budget issues left and right, and there were military bases across the country that were being taken out. If it cost too much for the base closure committee, they said, hell with it, shut them down. We can consolidate. So a lot of military bases had to go. because of budgetary constraints back in the 90s. And a lot of military personnel had to be shuffled and shuffled and let loose. Other politicians had fought like hell to continue keeping the military bases and tried to show them what they were worth to the communities and also what they offered. Edwards escaped because they had a long history. Long history back in the 20s and 30s when they actually had the Air Corps being formed. They needed some place, I guess. In World War II, it became a training ground. It became a training ground for pilots called Muroc during that time. A gentleman named Edwards rose up to the rank to general, part of the test pilots. They would use Edwards Air Force Base for um, experiments, testing. They did not want to get rid of it. And there had been other communities that sprang up around them. North Edwards is one of them, Mojave, Little Rock, Palmdale, Lancaster, Roseman. They all sprang around it to accommodate people coming in and living and working on the base. Not to mention interstate and infrastructures. So yeah, it became a really active hot zone. We even have aerospace companies out in Palmdale and Lancaster area and the border developing and designing. We actually had one next to Hollywood Burbank Airport, one of the major companies. Moved their operation back in the 80s, I think, 80s or 90s. And kept it ever since. So when they were having shuttles, well, we had the shuttle program, the SDS system, back in the 80s, 70s through the 80s. They were doing the testing out in Edwards and doing some of the manufacturing, final stages. We have streets designated in memory of them. So that being said, Edwards is a major base that they kept. And it's this place that would have irregular air shows when they could, when they have squadrons coming in, when they have the budget to afford it. So people around Southern California would be going to these bases. March Air Force bases out in Riverside, California. They kept that one going because it's an active military zone and for other reasons. A lot of budget. We have in the territory of March Air Force Base, and somewhere in that area, we have Goldstone. Goldstone is basically deep space radar. Scientific and military research, I guess. But they kept it. So we have a couple of military bases regarding air. We also had, at one time, El Toro Marine Air Base. They closed that one out. Budgetary constraints. Turned it into a community park. We used to have a base out in Long Beach, California. Naval Shipyard. No longer. So our own military base for the sea is, excuse me one second, up in Ventura County, where we have Oxnard, Point Hueneme. We have Sea Base. We have CB, Construction Battalion Base. We have an air base for Marines and Navy. So it's basically Navy town up there. They still salvaged. All this. With the military bases we would have, one would think that a Navy base or an Air Force base, an Army base, would be sufficient enough to host a big party for the President of the United States. I mean, hell, they got bases out in Florida. Or they probably have bases out in New York City, or actually the state of New York for that, wouldn't they? Let me take a look. I am going to do a search. I'm going to do a Google search. say list military okay. Bases in state of New York. Okay. Oh, Gasbag was born out there. City of New York. So, military out in New York. And one of the websites I'm pulling up right now, it's installations.militarysource.mil. And the New York installations they would have Joint Force Headquarters out in Latham. Fort Drum, 105th AW, 106 RQW, whatever those acronyms mean. I'm a civilian. I don't know this kind of crap. Fort Drum is out in Fort Drum, New York. Fort Hamilton, Albany, Saratoga Springs, and somewhere. But if it's an active military base, that's the thing I'm looking for, is active. Army Recruiting Battalion, military, West Point. Hell, he could have had his birthday over at West Point. He wants to show what kind of a brilliant guy he is. Why don't he ever go to Annapolis or West Point? He can do that. And without having a military parade, he'd have the cadets parade in front of him. And preen and just, he could soak it up. No. No. Oh, no, 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 no. We can't have that. Are you kidding me? No, 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 no. We must have a 4-mile march costing millions or almost $1 billion. A 4-mile walk from, it would have been worse. It would have been a lot worse if I said this one. But apparently he can't walk 4 miles. I could try walking 4 miles with some brakes. But he's got car. So he wants to do the Pentagon. He wants to do the Pentagon. A 4-mile stretch leading to his office. I mean, Arlington would have been a walk for him. But no. He wants a 4-mile walk from the Pentagon. You know how screwed up that's going to be? Here's the thing. I am trying to look on the Google Maps of just how much insanity this is. It's one thing going from Congress to the White House. He wants military activity here. Outside of his park, he wants to do this. Is he entitled to a birthday? Yeah, he's entitled to a birthday kit. He has helicopters flying into his place, into the Eclipse. It's a landing zone. But they also land at the White House lawn. He wants something dumb. But for us getting older, we want something that we can recognize and feel great about ourselves. So he wants to jam up Pennsylvania Avenue. He probably wants to jam up East Street Northwest, or the 17th Street South Northwest, or 17th Street Northwest. Probably wants to jam up Constitution. This would be a logistical nightmare. Of course, if he wanted to do this damn thing, I mean, really be crazy enough to do this damn thing, he needs to have a place to have the military hardware roll out, stored and rolled out. People who work over at the Pentagon would have to give up parking space over this. Here's the fun part about this one. Want to see this one? Okay. We got bridges. We got massive bridges. Okay. From the Pentagon itself, there is the. If I can just get this thing bumped up a bit, I need to see this. So I just need to increase it a little bit so I can take a look, because my eyesight's not so great these days. So I'm getting to zoom on this one, and I want to see what kind of place we got. Okay, according to Google Maps, we have the Henry G. Shirley Memorial Highway Toll Road. Interstate 395. And it's on the southern end of the Pentagon property. Massive, massive freeway bunched up by the Air Force Memorial. And it borders Arlington National Cemetery in the Pentagon area. Okay? Okay. The freeway in itself looks like it would accommodate trucks, and they probably do. Will it support tanks coming through it? Heavy column. Is he going to have armored personnel in him? Actually, is he going to have personnel in the armored vehicles that we would have? If we were talking about 1940s technology in mechanics, the deuce and a halves, the half tracks, they would have some problems with the road. But I just have deuce and a halves. Diesel trucks with maybe the flaps opened and you see the soldiers going, hey, ma. That wouldn't have been a problem with the road we have today. But we have heavier equipment. We have Abrams and we have other tanks that we use. Heavier equipment. I don't know if the toll road would be able to deal with it. The 395 is not exactly conducive to heavy traffic, but light traffic. That being said on that one, if the columns are being transported, even in the north parking lot of Arlington, they would have to get rid of it. The George Washington Memorial Parkway, that's going to be crushed, I would think. A lot of roadways and parkways leading up to Memorial Avenue. Memorial Avenue also has the Arlington Memorial Bridge. These bridges are not like they can go up like this. No, they've already got their height already, so ships and barges can go underneath here. At least not the tall ships, just maybe smaller boats. I'm worried about if they're going to crush that. If that wasn't bad enough for the Memorial Bridge there. Then if we're going to be talking about the Constitution going down Constitution itself, the convoy would happen to go well north above Arlington National Cemetery. They would go, I would think, on the 110 or the GW until they get to this 60 and 110 interchange. A lot of people are going to be complaining about this one because there's going to be a lot of noise and a lot of hardware coming through. They probably want to see this damn thing. So everybody would say, "Oh my God, it's Donald Trump." I'm saying logistics here. So they would have to have a way of getting across the Theodore Roosevelt Bridge, the Teddy Bridge, I think they called it. They would have to have the light column to be transferred to this bridge somehow. And they would have to come from an angle on that one, I would think. No, I would think that they would have to go to, let me see. By Air Force Base, Air Force Memorial. No. Okay, so here's the thing. In order to get the navigation going across the Teddy Roosevelt Bridge, I would think that they would have to have their equipment rolling on Pentagon property to the bridges. Maybe this time to get to Washington Boulevard and roll up on that. And while they're rolling up on that, and they make their connections to the 50, and the 50 would go north. Now they are on the Arlington Boulevard. And then they come up to, they continue northwards on it. They'll be rolling through neighborhoods. Civilian work. This is going to be a long video. So up on Arlington, going through neighborhoods, civilian neighborhoods, maybe military bases and private enterprises, until they get to the interchange. I've never been to Washington. I'm only looking at the Google Maps at this point. When they get to the interchanges, to the 110, somehow wind up on the Teddy Bridge. Travel across the 66 route, because the 66 route was coming from north. Now it's going across the bridge and splitting. Splitting into spaghetti, I call it. Roadways up in Washington are spaghetti. But along the 66 freeway, I imagine that's where he would have it at. He could go on Arlington Memorial Bridge, go across it, go around the Lincoln Memorial until he gets up to Constitution Avenue, and then roll on it. If he's going to be joining that convoy, is he going to be walking, or is he going to be in an open-air vehicle saying, "I'm the Trump! I am the Trump!" You can get a Pulpmobile. Armored. But a 704 to 66 would lead over to the Constitution Avenue, and then straight shot over to the White House. There's only two bridges that would get him close to the Constitution. As I said before, the Teddy Bridge, closest, and then Arlington Memorial, a little offshoot, but they can do it. They can do it. Of course, if they really want to make it convoluted as hell, but he wants to go down Constitution Avenue. He wants to spend millions of dollars, almost $1 billion, of getting heavy-duty equipment of the U.S. Army. And not to mention, if there's going to be an air base out there, they're going to be supporting Army choppers. He probably wants the Navy to be demonstrated, as well as the Air Force. The Air Force doesn't have any land. The Air Force has the Air Force. They probably want a Space Force out there. They probably want the Coast Guard. A little small band or marching area. Or else they could just be patrolling up and down with smoke or something like that. Hail to our insane chief of the egomaniacs! They probably could do that. All the while just to get to his office. And to show people, I am the greatest president of the United States. You know how many things this can go wrong? Even the Secret Service and the military can already point it out. There's no way in hell. I see so many logistics on this one. No, that doesn't work. Most of our government is right across the street from Arlington. Actually, across the waterways of the Potomac. That would have been something for the military to go past if they were going to be going up on that way. Past Congress, say, see, or get past the Supreme Court of the United States and just say, bite me. No. It was reported, and I don't know if they're going to solidify it or not, from the Pentagon and from Arlington, across the Potomac, to the White House. Those are the only ways I know how to do this one. Just by looking. Actually, there's another way. The southern way was going on the 395, I was trying to say, the toll road, going across with the heavy-duty equipment, driving past Thomas Memorial, Thomas Jefferson Memorial, going up the 1, till you up to the 14th Street. There, if it goes up to 14th Street, you drive right past the National Mall, right through it, with the heavy-duty equipment and trucks and stuff like that. Past the museums that he's shutting down. He's not very big on education or museums or stuff like that. He's not. Except if it's to dedicate his insanity. But for the 14th, yeah, it'd be close enough to his office. That'd be totally insane at that point. You could have drove past George Washington University, Pennsylvania. I understand there's something called DuPont Circle, which is a nightmare. I don't know. I'm afraid to visit the place. Washington Circle. I'm afraid to visit the place. Because I would think that the traffic and everything else out there would get me confused as hell. I've always heard about what the DuPont, also the Scott Circle. What's DuPont Circle? There's Thomas Circle Park. Yeah, but where's DuPont? I've heard about it so many times I don't even know where the hell it is. But this is what things are. I say it's a nightmare. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll find it eventually. Okay, somewhere in there. They got circles all over the place in Washington State that'll drive you crazy regarding traffic. DuPont Circle Hotel. Okay. I just found DuPont Circle. Yay! Okay. Big whoop. I saw it. Now what? Okay, but that's my point concerning about the White House wanting to have an ego fed. Out of my pocketbook and out of yours. Think about that one. It just would have been better if it was at an air base or a military base. He could have a parade, parading past him instead of him going down there like he's a conquering hero. Conquering maniac would be more like it.